Before we get started with some of the more involved projects on this channel, I thought it would be a good idea for me to sit down and introduce myself a little bit better so you guys get a better picture of who this random person is behind the screen. So, today we're actually going to do a portfolio walkthrough, and this is a portfolio that I've only recently created since I've had a bit of perfectionism block where any design that I made just didn't feel good enough. But recently, I decided that it was better to have something than to keep procrastinating and not have anything at all. So, if you're a student who's currently looking to get into the working field and you feel like any portfolio you're designing is not good enough, this is your sign to just put something down and improve it as you go. And to help you do that, today I'm going to explore some of the design considerations that I made when I was designing my portfolio, why I put things in the places that I put them, some things that you should keep in mind when you're designing your portfolio, as well as introduce myself, my experience, my skills, and my projects a little bit more so you guys can have an idea of who it is running this channel. Before we get started, I would heavily recommend any of you who are looking to build a portfolio site to go and watch Anthony Sestilli. Hope I pronounced his name correctly, but he's been doing a lot of portfolio review streams where he kind of describes what reviewing these portfolio sites is like from the recruiter's perspective, which I think is a very good insight for you to get in order to build your own portfolio site. And I have implemented a lot of his advice into designing my own portfolio. So something he stresses a lot is that on the landing page, you want to have a quick snapshot of who you are and what you do. So for me, I am a designer, a developer, and an artist. And these are the three words I would use to describe myself. My name is Tarika Birch. I'm a front-end developer, and you can very easily download my resume here to see anything more that you need to see. And below that, we have ways to get in contact with me as well as my social media sites. So scrolling a bit further down the page, we have immediately my skills. And this is supposed to allow the recruiters to see immediately what I can do, what I've worked with, the technologies I know, the design tools that I know, and show them that I've worked with industry standard tools prior and I can work with industry standard tools going forward. For students who don't have a lot of industry experience currently, one thing I would recommend to fill out this section is to build your own projects. Some of these things I haven't used in my job, but because I've built my own personal projects with them, I can include them confidently because I know how to use these tools. So moving on to the Who I Am section, this gives a bit deeper of a snapshot into who I am. And it says, I'm a front-end developer who enjoys crafting user-friendly experiences, short and sweet. A lot of people tend to ramble in their About Me sections, but as Anthony would have mentioned in his portfolio reviews, a recruiter is going through so many of these portfolio sites that they don't sit down and read full paragraphs. You have to give them who you are at a snapshot so that they can quickly consume the information and move on to the next portfolio. So you want to communicate who you are quickly enough and efficiently enough so that they can understand who you are and why they would want to work with you. This section for me tells you that I am currently pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science with a minor in Management. A lot of words, I know. I have an expected graduation date of May 2025. You have my GPA as well. You can see that I'm the secretary of the Computer Science Society and that I'm an award-winning artist with 7 years of experience and the founder of an art and design company called Currencia Studios, which you can click and see the company site from. Moving on, the next thing that you can see is my experience, where you can see that I have internship experience as well as contract experience working as a software developer slash engineer. And this essentially lets the recruiter know that I'm hireable and that I've worked in the industry before. For students who may not have experience, I would highly recommend going out and trying to get internships as much as you possibly can. As I stressed before, it's also important to build your own personal projects so that even if you don't have this experience section, you can still show the recruiter that you're passionate about technology or whatever field it is that you're currently in. And as I was just stressing projects, this is a quick snippet of my 3 latest projects. Although I think it is currently out of order because I don't actually have filtering on it yet, but these are the projects that I'm most proud about. So we have the Pellucid Web, Recall Rumble, and JobWise, but we'll get into those a little bit more in detail when I get to my projects page. And here we have my awards and certificates, which is pretty self-explanatory. You want certificates to show that you have knowledge in particular areas, and then the awards are just a little added bonus. And then as you scroll down, it reminds you one more time that I'm a front-end developer, and it says Made with Love by Tarika Birch. And that concludes the home page. I do want to add some animations to it. Nothing crazy to hinder the user experience, but just some small things similar to what I did with the cursors up here to add a little bit more life to the page so it's not as static. Here it is. This is my about page, which is kind of similar to the landing of the home page, which also gives you the quick insight as to who I am. It gives you a couple of my GitHub stats, which admittedly are not that impressive currently, but we're getting there. And this is supposed to be an image which shows my leak code stats. However, it seems as though the server that I'm currently using from somebody else's project is currently down because even their example pictures aren't showing. So I will replace that at some point with something, but not today. I wanted to change the layout of this page because I'm not particularly a fan of it, but for the time being, perhaps I'll replace it with a carousel showing some images from my time as the secretary of the Computer Science Society or some of the award ceremonies I've been at, that sort of stuff, so that you can get a snapshot of who I am and see a real picture of me on this site. As we scroll down the page, we can see my skills, we can see my education and experience, so I won't go over those again. And then as we scroll down, we can see a more detailed section of my awards and the same thing for the certificates. I do think my about page needs some work in terms of the design, the layout, and obviously the late code badge, but I'm still a bit indecisive as to how I want to do it. But for now, I think this does the job. So now we're at the fun part, my projects. And this isn't everything I've done, but it shows a good snapshot of some of the work that I can do and have done in the past. It's 8 projects so far. Can I do math? 5, 6, 7, 8. Yes, I can. So it's 8 projects so far. And these are some of the more interesting projects that I think I've had that have been completed or near completion and work with technologies that I'm interested in working with, or just simple technologies I did for fun. So the first project on this page is Pellucid Web. This is the company website for the company that I'm currently working for, Pellucid IT, where they would have asked me to do a complete rebranding and redesign of the company website during the summer. So this was done with Drupal, and here is the design. So I currently have it in dark mode because my system is in dark mode, but there's also the light mode version. I'm so sorry about whoever just got flashbanged, but this is the light mode version as well, but I'm gonna just yeah, this is the website which I would have been responsible for redesigning and redeveloping. We went through the entire process from creating the mockups, having a presentation, receiving user feedback from other developers of the company, as well as the CEO of the company himself. And once the design had the go ahead, I had the pleasure of working with an intern who helped me with the development of the site. The next design is something that I'm very proud about, and this is Recall Room. This is a game which, for some reason, Opera decided to say no and no longer hides my cards correctly. So the functionality doesn't function the way the functionality should function. But if I take this same link and I go to Chrome or Edge, but we'll use Chrome for this example. If you open it with Chrome, you can see the game works. And essentially the game is a memory matching game where you can pick 2 cards, they flip back over. Everybody knows the memory matching game. And if the cards match, they stay up. If they don't match, they flip back down. The score increases every time you get a match, but if you don't get a match, then the score goes down. And this game was something that I'm very proud of because I designed all of the graphics, all of the animations. The entire game was designed by me from scratch using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So I was very, very proud of this game. Next, we have JobWise, which was intended to be a job application tracker that I would have designed with Expo, React Native, and Firebase. I don't currently have a way to show you it because it is a mobile app, but I have a link to the prototype here, which is another good way to show off your projects if they're not hosted or live. So anybody viewing the site is able to flip through the project and see what it is. It was supposed to be a simple, easy job application tracker because by the time a company gets back to you, you're like, I don't even remember applying for this position. So this was something that I created to solve this problem where you can keep track of the jobs that you've applied to, the different resumes you would have had, the cover letters, the contracts, everything like that. Most of the app is up and running, but there are 1 or 2 fixes that I need to make that I haven't gotten around to making as yet. The next project is Insights, which I also don't have posted, but I also don't have a mockup for. This is a social media dashboard app, which is designed to track user analytics across your different social media platforms. So for those of you who are social media managers or marketing specialists, you would have access to your Instagram statistics, your Facebook statistics, your Twitter statistics, everything in one condensed place. And I was working on it with Isaiah Carrington, as you can see here, who's the president of the Computer Science Society. He was working more on the back end stuff and interacting with APIs and stuff like that, the server side aspect, which I myself can admit that I'm not proficient in. So he was handling that side of things and I was handling the front end side of things. But as you can imagine, interfacing with other social media apps is quite a task. So this project is currently on pause and to be determined if it's going to be restarted, but it was an interesting venture at the time. Next is Simon Says, and this is a game that I recently designed. This is a memory sequence matching game where you essentially watch the tiles light up, you memorize the sequence and you play it back in the same order. We get a sequence being played and you essentially just enter back the sequence as it is played. So you get the point. This was kind of a fun little project that I made because I wanted to make a game. We're getting a little bit older here, where we have a site made with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Bootstrap. This was a project that I made with a couple of classmates for a class called Computer Systems Architecture, where we were essentially teaching people about Boolean expressions and Boolean algebra, stuff like that. I was responsible for doing the design of the site, and I think it turned out pretty cool. I also was responsible for creating the master quiz and the quiz functionalities. These are the type of questions that you have, multiple choice, so you can select an answer and then click evaluate and go on to the next questions. When you reach the end after 30 questions, you can click get score and you can see my final score is 20% because I did not put in any of these answers or read the questions. Now moving on. This was a pretty cool project that we made for the computer systems architecture course, and we actually won the best project of the class where we got a $20 Digicel top up. This is my watermelon story, and currently I don't have it hosted, so we just have the link to the GitHub repository because that's how my projects are set up. If the live site isn't there, then it just links straight to the GitHub repository, so you can read a little bit more about the project. This site was essentially practice for me to get familiar with Angular, and I made the initiative to recreate a mini version of the technologies that I was working with at my job at the time, because they were looking for me to start using Angular, so I had to get up to speed pretty quickly, and I didn't have a lot of time before school started back. So I decided I'm going to create a mini project to learn the different technologies that I needed to use, which involved, I think, using Node.js, Docker, Nest.js, Angular CLI, Prisma. It was a lot to learn in a short period of time, especially as a student who hadn't really touched frameworks heavily. Before that, I was only using vanilla HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But this helped to reinforce some of the material from the tutorials that my senior would have sent me at the time. Shout out to Tennille. And it was very good to kind of reinforce some of the concepts that I needed to learn to get started working on the project. Finally, we have Equity Care, and this is the oldest thing on this page. This was a site that I made when I first entered university and had to do the entrepreneurship for computer sciences class. And this was a headache and a half. Let me tell you why. We were given, was it 24 or 48? 48. We were given 48 hours to make a business plan and then make a site based on it. So given the limited amount of time and me restarting my idea several times, this site is not one of the best things that I've made, but it did the job and I did pretty good on the project. We had to have some sort of element that used JavaScript, so I choose to have this section that changes when you click the different buttons. Let me show you something though. If I click who twice, disappears entirely. No fail-safe, none. And this concludes the projects that I have on my portfolio site. One thing that I do want to add is a search bar as well as a filter, so that if somebody comes onto the site and is looking to see if I've built projects using a particular technology, they can just filter by that technology and see the projects that are associated with it. And finally, we have the contact page, which I think is pretty cool. It's like a little mini browser that you can navigate. You have the email, LinkedIn, GitHub, Medium, and then my YouTube channel. You can also see my resume from here, and then you have the links on here as well in case somebody doesn't want to like click here and then click here. They can do like one straight click. So yeah, that's my portfolio site. There are a few things that I would like to change for the about page. For example, I would like to maybe play around with the layout a little bit more, add some more animations to the homepage. Nothing crazy because that would affect the user experience. I also want to have a page dedicated to my design work because this is the only version of a design portfolio that I have, which is tailored to more of a graphics UI UX side of things rather than straight up visual art. And I don't think it's the best representation of a designer's portfolio because these images are way too big. The layout is not that great. You can't filter, you can't see things easily. It's just not the most engaging site. In essence, those are all of the changes that I currently have lined up to make on this portfolio site, but I am interested to hear what you guys think I should change, add, or remove from the site to make it a little bit better and enhance the overall user experience or the marketability of my site. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below, or if you know me personally, just shout me and be like, hey, Tarika, change that now, and I will listen to your recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.